to share their insights on harmonizing traditional agriculture wisdom with modern technologies, a vital step towards achieving sustainable and resilience in our food system. Together, let's continue this enriching journey of learning, innovation, and collaboration, moving forward toward more sustainable and hopeful tomorrow. Before we move ahead, let's take a moment to recognize the esteemed universities or institutes that have come together to make this event possible. Sri Guru Ram Rai University, Dehradun was established in 2017 under the guidance of Sri Mahant Devdas Ji Maharaj, a visionary leader and a benefactor. Situated in the heart of Uttarakhand, the university proudly carries forward the rich legacy and the value of Sri Guru Ram Rai education mission. With over 7 decades of educational excellence, SGRR University is dedicated to holistic student development, fostering knowledge, practical exposure, confidence, and strong professional network. The placement record for this university is over 80% in the reputed organizations worldwide. SGRR University continues to nurture skills, confident, and industry ready professionals committed to make the meaningful impact. Now, let's talk about the Just Agriculture. It's the India's largest agriculture professional platform, engaging over 8 lakh readers and 80,000 LinkedIn community. It serves as a vibrant platform for sharing the latest agriculture innovations and insight. Driven by the passion and purpose, Just Agriculture channels innovation, technology, and the voice of farmers, celebrating both their seen unseen contribution. Within just 2 years, the Just Agriculture Education Group has 7 FDPs, 9 workshops, 14 international trainings, 12 international conferences, and co organized several government expos and summits. Through the collaboration with India's leading agriculture institutions, it has successfully trained over 15,000 students and stakeholders. The group continues to work closely with all agricultural stakeholders, students, scientists, professionals, and farmers to enhance the knowledge, skills, livelihood, and across the agriculture sector. ISASTR, it's the another collaborator. That's the Indian Society of Agriculture Science and Technology Research. New Delhi. The society has been actively working in the area of agriculture, environment, farmers' welfare with a stronger focus on the sustainable development. ISASTR provide a unique platform for the scientists, academicians, researchers, and policymakers to exchange ideas, encourage innovation, and knowledge for the betterment of the agriculture sector. It is recognized today as one of the largest professional network in India's agriculture and allied sector, serving as a vital bridge between the rural communities and the key stakeholders, including government agencies, development organizations, and corporate entities. Now, for today, our lecture, we are here together with Dr. Damaris A. Ordney and Dr. Simarjit Kaur. We are very honored to welcome the Dr. Damaris with our very delightful to have her in our FTP program as a keynote speaker. Dr. Damaris Ordney is a principal scientist at the International Crops Research Institute for Semi-Arid Tropics and a renowned plant molecular breeder. She collaborates with the national, private, and international institutes across Asia and Africa to develop advanced genomic resources for dryland crops. Before joining ECRISET, she worked as a senior researcher for Agriculture Research Council, South Africa, where she focused on the molecular breeding for indigenous crops such as sorghum, cassava, sweet potatoes, African eggplants, and amaranthus. Deeply committed to the mentoring and the capacity building, Dr. Ordney integrates her research with guiding young scientists inspired by her own career journey. She serves on the editorial borders of the leading journals, including the Theoretical and Applied Genetics, the Plant Genomes, Plants, People, Planets, and Euphytica. Additionally, this is a member of a several international scientist and advisory bodies, including the International Research Training Groups and the chairs the advisory board of WACCI VACS Capacity Hub project. Dr. Odney has authored over 100 peer reviewed publications in crop improvement and molecular breeding. So let's welcome Dr. Dramaris for her valuable and pleasant words.
Thank you so much, Tamana, for that really wonderful introduction. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much. So I'm gonna just get right into it. I've been told I have about 40 minutes, but I
Yes,
would
ma'am.
like to, yes, I would like to do maybe 35 minutes. I'll do 20 minutes and then in between ask if there are any questions, and please feel free to ask me any question if you need any clarification. And then after 20 minutes, I'll probably continue with the rest of the presentation. Does anyone have a question? I can hear somebody speaking.
Okay, like in the last, we'll be having the question answer round,
Okay,
like
so
after the presentation.
I need not to break in the middle.
Sorry?
No, I was planning to give 1 or 2 minutes in the middle, just in case somebody's needing clarification, and then
Okay.
continue another 20 minutes. Yeah, okay.
Okay, sure.
So I probably just, I think Tamana did a really good introduction of me. I will not say anything more about myself, but I'll say something a little bit about the organization that I work for. And I've worked at ICRSAT for the last 12 years. So for those of you, I think most of those joining today are from India, and ICRSAT is very well known in India, so I don't have to say so much. We basically have the mandate to work in the semi-arid tropics. Our focus is global. So any semi-arid tropic region, we basically have the mandate to work there. But our focus has been mainly in Africa and Asia. So we have a very strong presence there. And in most of the African countries also, we do have regional offices and in some cases, country-specific offices. Now we have a very noble vision of ensuring that there's prosperity across the dryland regions of Asia and Africa. And we just really want to improve livelihoods to ensure there's no poverty, there's no malnutrition, and that there's no environmental degradation. So the main crops that we work on are these that you can see on your screen. But we also work on several other crops. So remember, our mandate is on the systems, the agri-food systems that are considered as dryland. And so some of these crops get to be intercropped with other major crops, or they just happen to be in the same system. And, we work across other crops as well that may not be appearing here. And this graph here is just showing the regions or the areas where our varieties have been released. So just to show how global ICRSAT is. So today I have the opportunity to just share something about niche crops and the development of genomic resources for sustainable agriculture. So the first thing someone would ask is, what is a niche crop? And this is my attempt to define what it is. Now, there have been so many different words that have been used to define what I've defined here on your right. Um, um, but basically, there have been so many names given. Sometimes it depends on the moment, what people are trying to capture And so we do have several different crop names that have been given to these crops. And these are crops that have important attributes. They have the potential to be grown for profit or subsistence. They have been under-researched in the past, and they are therefore may or may not have inadequate or total lack of genetic and genomic resources. That is generally my definition. And I think it's a definition that resonates with many. So you can also read a review that I did together with a number of colleagues in this paper that was published in Theoretical and Applied Genetics in 2021, where we attempted to define what it is. But when I look at the description that was given by Tadale in 2019, he tried to look at the different names that have been given to these crops. So basically, if these are not major crops that people are everywhere in the world, if you wake up one day and ask them what is maize, for example, they would know. But these are crops that are perhaps only known in a very specific region, or they are grown in a specific community. They are probably disadvantaged. Sometimes they've been referred to as crops for the future. So Tadele, in his description, defines different things and refers you to different publications that have defined them differently. Orphan crops is probably something that you've heard a lot about, but the people who've questioned, is that the right word? And so as you can see, Tadele has used the definition by Padulossi to define niche crops as marginal, that crops that have marginal importance in production systems. So I would combine this together with the definition that we provide here with Kamenya to say that, niche crops are, and especially in the context of this presentation, are those crops that perhaps have climate resilience or are climate adapted and can be used for sustainable agriculture. Now, just to define sustainable agriculture, before we delve into the genomic resources of everything, what is sustainable agriculture? And that is something that has become almost a buzzword, but it's a very important two combinations of words. Historically, agriculture was driven by yield. So the population is growing and we are looking to feed the growing population. And so, but at the same time, farmers are looking to increase yield and maximize their profits. So there was some sort of disconnect. We were so driven by profitability and ensuring that everyone has food, but not really considering the damage that might be having to the environment. And so the word sustainable agriculture comes in to say, yes, we do want to have food security. Yes, we do want farmers to be profitable, but in a sustainable environment. We don't want to destroy the planet, the only one planet that we have. We don't have another one, so we have to take care of this. And we do know that the drive to increase yields mainly, but also other things, have actually driven climate change significantly in the last few decades. If you look at this graph on your right, you see that temperatures have been changing, but even more so over the last 2 decades. As you can see, this is happening so much faster in the last 2 decades, and especially in Africa and Asia. So I'm just showing this for Africa and Asia. The temperatures are already hot, but they're getting even hotter. And we do know that with hotter temperatures, you're limited to how much you can grow. And so sustainable agriculture comes in to help us to define and to focus more on long-term environmental benefits rather than short-term yields. And also just to be able to look at a lot more crops that we have, you know, out of the so many species that the planet is blessed with, most of cultivation is just centered around a few of them. And so that's how niche crops come into play, to come and help us to really realize this sustainability. And some of the climate concerns that we do know are threatening sustainability are some of these that appear here. Soil degradation, this is happening so much faster, especially in the hotter environments. We know that now we're experiencing more flooding than before in certain areas, while in certain areas we are experiencing more drought, there's more heat, and with more flooding, you know, you also experience salinity, and also it comes with the threats of pests and diseases. Something else that is also really, really concerning is the increasing production, the increased amount of greenhouse gas emissions that are coming mostly, well, it's other activities, but also there's agriculture that is contributing to the greenhouse gas emissions. We also know that, you know, because of the climate change and increase in temperatures, we are having to deal with more parasitic weeds than we dealt with before. So these are concerns that I will talk about here. But the first niche crop that I'm going to talk about is finger millet, which I think is something that is known to most of us at this presentation today. So finger millet is traditional. It is indigenous to Africa. So it is believed to have been domesticated in the area around Uganda or Ethiopia. It's believed to have been domesticated about 5,000 years ago. Actually, there's theory that it might be the oldest indigenous domesticated cereal in Africa, but this is not verified yet. But this crop is also grown in Asia, mostly in India and Nepal. So just showing the concentrated areas of finger millet growing, and these are the areas that are growing significant amounts. So I think there's some growing of finger millet all across India, but in relatively large scale, you find it in these pockets that are shown here. But why the interest in finger millet? It is known to be very resilient to climate. It tends to thrive under very low input. It is also highly nutritious. It's one of the highest in calcium content of cereals that we know. It also has a superior malting quality. So it has a lot of good things going on for it. But we do have a few production challenges. It is affected globally by blast disease, which is the same pathogen that affects several other cereals like rice, pearl millet, wheat. And specifically in Africa, there is a parasitic weed called Striga hermonthia, and I'll come back to that later. It also affects finger millet. So despite it being drought tolerant, it still does have other issues that needs to be addressed. Just as I said, you know, it has very admirable nutritional quality with very high calcium content, but also other micronutrients such as iron, magnesium, zinc. We also do know that it has fewer pests and diseases that attack it. The blast, I'll come back to later. It does also have very good grain storage quality. So you can, because of this very small seed, it rarely gets affected by storage pests. So you can store it for a long time. Its grain has very high quality food and feed. It is ideal for weaning babies. And so in most places, and I can say this for Eastern Africa, which is where I come from, by the way, I'm a native of Kenya. The demand for finger millet always outstrips supply. So there's always demand for it. And so that means you can actually do good business growing finger millet because it fetches way more per kg equivalent of maize or other cereal. So how have we used genomics to enhance the utility of this crop that is potentially going to help or improve agricultural sustainability? Now, 10 years ago, we had almost no genomic resources in finger millet, and it was extremely difficult to do any trait discovery or breeding related activities on it. And so bringing together several partners across the globe, we did whole genome sequencing. We planned to do whole genome sequencing of finger millet. And by the way, I did show in one of the slides that finger millet is a tetraploid. It is an allotetraploid. At the time that we were starting this work, we didn't actually know the exact genome size. So we had to do some level of estimation of the genome size, which we did with both flow cytometry and also using short reads that had been generated using Illumina machine. So as you can see, using flow cytometry, we had a fairly good estimation of about 1.5 GB of the genome size. And this correlated pretty well when we did short read sequencing and using 17-mer reads to look at the genome size, which we also estimated at about 1.5 GB. So we did whole genome sequencing, and the data that I'm showing you here was purely Illumina based at the time. This work was done mainly in Nairobi. Now, at that time, we were just interested in getting a draft reference genome that we could use at least to be able to call SNPs that we can use for indirect selection or to fast track selection for traits of interest. And this work was done in partnership with the BGI, China. So we did all these library sizes, sequenced it, and used this data to generate a draft whole genome, a reference genome. Together with that, we did transcriptome sequencing of different tissues, as you can see here, starting from flowers, leaves, stems, roots, and yeah, at different stages. And so we used this data to do some level of annotation of the reference genome. And that was pretty much a draft reference genome, but it went a long way to help us to at least do a few things at a much faster rate in finger millet. As you would have seen, mostly recently, that we have since generated a very high platinum quality, and I'll come back to that later. So with that data set, just using Illumina short reads only, we were able to generate this assembly reference genome of finger millet. And at that time, there were also two other efforts that were going on, I think one in India and another one in Japan, that also generated reference genomes. So those made it possible for us to do things like, GWAS, to use SNPs, because before it was really difficult to be able to use SNPs because we didn't have a way of calling the SNPs, but also because finger millet is a tetraploid, it was important that we have something that we can anchor, so we know this is this belongs to A genome and this belongs to B genome. So this went a long way. And as I mentioned, we have since broadened the partnership and ended up developing a platinum scale reference genome of finger millet. But I'm putting those two separately to say that actually for a niche crop, for an underutilized crop, which most of the time there's low investment in. Just this kind of a reference genome is enough to get you started in terms of doing genomics, trait discovery. It is nice to have a platinum scale assembly, but it's not always the limiting factor. A draft reference genome can go a long way. And I'm saying that because for niche crops, in many cases, it's difficult to get good funding to be able to generate those long reads and come up with platinum scale assembly. But I thank the NSF of the USA for providing these funds, to Dr. DeVos, who is based at the University of Georgia, because then that helped us to be able to build on the short reads that we had generated and to be able to come up with a platinum scale assembly, which was very nice. But some of the other things that we were able to do was also to do resequencing of diverse genotypes. Now, typically you need these to be able to just have an understanding of how different, well, how many, to be able to generate markers significantly, but also to be able to see how can you use the different well, not subspecies, but related species in the crop improvement. So we were able to also do resequencing across different species that are cross-compatible. And I have to say that because our resequencing was basically to be able to see to what extent we can use these cross-compatible genotypes or relatives, wild relatives in the breeding process. There are several other resequencing that has been done now, and most of it within the cultivated, but I'll just focus on like the very basic ones that we did. So now, having all that information, we were able to characterize different collections of finger millet, which is the basic information you need to know to be able to set up a breeding program. You want to know how diverse or how related different genotypes are as you use them in your crossing program. And one of the things that came out that was really exciting is just to be able to see out of the collections that we had, we could actually see distinctly the differences between Ethiopian and Ugandan genotypes. And the reason it was important for us to do this genotyping was because, you know, we do know, as I mentioned, that the domestication could have happened around Uganda, Ethiopia. And the reason is because, you know, there's more use of it. You know, traditionally, there's been more use of finger millet in these regions. And you also have great diversity, genetic diversity in those regions. But the two types, the two idiotypes of finger millet that you find in Ethiopia and the ones you find in Uganda and the rest of East Africa are very different. You know, the Ethiopian finger millet are very tall and they're quite huge, and you know, they also look a lot more like that they've been domesticated longer, if you get what I mean. The rest of the finger millet from the rest of East Africa, they are still more like the wild. They look very more like the wild genotypes. And those are the ones that actually were shipped to India several years ago during the trade. So the ones in eastern, the southern eastern part of East Africa look more like the Indian ones, the ones that we find are being grown here in India. So this was interesting, but that also helps us to understand, you know, like if you want to enrich diversity in your breeding program, let's say you are from Ethiopia, you feel like you've exhausted the diversity for a particular trait. If you want to enrich that, you know, you have the option to go down south and, you know, maybe hoping that because they are very distinct, you can enrich diversity in your program that way. Yeah, no, so now other things that now we've been able to do with finger millet is to be able to do mapping for traits. And just referring to this work that we did with the University of Georgia, led by Pendergast, we actually took an existing cross that was done between wild and cultivated. By the way, something that I need to mention is that finger millet is highly self-crossing. And for that reason, you don't find so much variation within the cultivated, but the moment you move out and go to the wild, you end up finding quite huge diversity. And so in this particular case, there was a cross that was done between cultivated and the progenitor. So this is the relative, the wild relative from which finger millet was domesticated. And so from this cross, this was a cross that was made in the 1990s, but still could not be used because there wasn't enough resources to be able to use it to do the mapping. We were able to use it to map the various traits, as you can see. And, this flowering is very important because the early flowering ones tend to be drought escaping. So that's really nice. But also we were able to look at blasts association with blast resistance. So if you can see here, this is leaf blast severity, and here we have panicle blast severity, panicle blast resistance. Now I'm highlighting this here, but both these QTLs have proven to be really important in our breeding activities, especially in East Africa. Now, if you look at that chromosome 6b for panicle blast, and by the way, both leaf blasts, well, so there are three different kinds of blast. There's leaf blast, neck blast, and panicle blast. And the most important is actually panicle blast because in many cases, a lot of plants are able to recover from leaf blast. But if it happens on the panicle, then it is almost too late to recover. So looking at panicle blast incidence or resistance was really important. And so this is really nice. It was really nice to be able to utilize the resources generated to address something that is actually important in the breeding program. And I want you to also just keep an eye on this panicle blast resistance QTL here, because something else will come up that is consistent with it. So this study here used a biparental mapping population. I'm going to give another example where we've used a diverse set to do eventually do a GWAS study. And I want to acknowledge Emmanuel Ijet Igolat from Uganda, who worked on this as part of his MSc thesis. So he looked at 200 diverse Ugandan genotypes. You'll be able to see how diverse they are in the next slide. And he did phenotype them in one location across 3 seasons. And the idea to phenotype in one location was really important because we still do not know how diverse the pathogen is. And so maintaining one location with the hope that we are not introducing another variation. So if we end up with too many pathotypes, then it makes it a little bit more difficult to get clear associations. And so we, in this study, Emmanuel looked at, did the phenotyping across 3 seasons at the same location, and obviously looked at, leaf blights, severity, neck blast, finger blast. And yes, he was able to identify some interesting sources of resistance. And some of these are actually cutting across. So you find that they are resistant for leaf, for neck, and finger blast, which is really important. So those are the kinds of genotypes that you'd really want to retain, because you know they're going to thrive at that location across the different blight types. So you see, for example, Ikulule is resistant across at different stages. We also have here GBK 029801, I believe, 02, that is resistant at seedling stage. I think, GBK 029674A, that is resistant at leaf, but also at next stage. So this was really important to be able to select for those genotypes that have resistance across the different types that we are looking at. But anyway, he went also ahead and looked at association mapping. Now, this was important for me to give here as an example, because many times when we're working with niche crops, you don't always have the luxury of a lot of money. Now, what we did in this particular study was to do very extremely low coverage genotyping by sequencing. And as you can see, I mean, most of the markers, for those of you who've been doing GWAS, you can see that there's not a high density of markers, right? But despite that, we were still able to identify some very good associations. And as you can see, in one of the cases, the 6A QTL that we are seeing here corresponds to the one that we saw here, even though it's in 6B, but it's the corresponding location. And so the candidate genes that we find that are associated here are pretty much similar to the ones that are associated here. Now here, just showing you just how diverse the genotypes are. Some of these have wild introgressions, especially from the same source, the wild relative that was used in making this cross. So the material that was used was pretty diverse. But also just to highlight here that, in many cases, what you need for a successful association analysis is informative markers. You can have 20,000 or 10,000 very informative markers and be able to get association with the trait. But you can have 1 million pretty crappy markers that are not informative, and you will not get good associations. And so what we did here was that we went for a method that gave us very informative markers. And as you can see here, these markers, as few as they are, the first 3 principal components alone explain more than 40% genetic variation across these genotypes. Now, if you're involved in a lot of genome-wide association studies, you would know that there are many cases where people are using millions of SNPs, and the SNPs do not even explain significant genetic variation across the population. And so just to show, in an environment where you have low resources and you're still looking to do some level of association, go for a method that gives you the most informative markers that would still be able to pick up associations, even though you might have less markers. And the other thing also is go for a pretty diverse, well, as diverse as possible, to be able to capture the variation that you expect to be there. So that, and also, I mean, even if you have related germplasm, yes, please, you can still have them, but then make sure that you correct for the relatedness in your analysis. Now I'm going to shift a little bit and also just to ask, I was going to give 1 minute if there's any clarity that anybody needs. I'll give a few seconds before I go into Striga Harmontica, and I'll go really fast because I don't have much time. Yes, any questions, any clarifications that somebody would like to have? Okay, So I'll proceed and talk about Striga hermonthia. And this is interesting because I think it's something that most of you may not be very aware of. So Striga hermonthia is a very beautiful plant. It's a parasitic weed. It looks like this, as you see here at the bottom. It's a very niche parasite as well, because it only exists in certain regions. And I'll show on a map in the next slide. It parasitizes most cereals, and in some cases, some legumes as well. But it parasitizes finger millet as well. So it's an obligate hemiparasite. So what it does is it will germinate in the presence of the host and then attach to the host. But once it attaches to the host, it's able to photosynthesize independently. So it will use the nutrients that it obtains from the host and, happily proceed to do its own thing and to thrive. It produces thousands and thousands of seeds, and the seeds can survive up to 20 years in the soil. So the seeds remain buried in the soil. And so you can imagine these seeds just sit there and waiting. The day you're planting the host, it will germinate. And they can do that for years and years. So it will just keep on germinating every time you have the right host. And so it remains a very important problem in Africa, in certain African regions, where it affects most of the cereals, major cereals, sorghum, maize, millets, and rice. Now, as you can see, the distribution, I said it's a very niche parasitic weed. If you look at its distribution, it's in this region and across. If you remember the map that I showed you, where finger millet is indigenous to and where it's grown, it actually does overlap with the areas where Striga is endemic. So it is a very serious problem in finger millet growing regions. Now, traditionally, now I'm going to share some work that was done by a PhD student, Josephine Kunguni, whose picture appears here. Now, just to give you a little bit of background. So even though Striga is endemic in this region, as you can see, at the moment, finger millet is only affected by Striga in the eastern part of Africa, but not in Nigeria. So there's a lot of finger millet grown in Nigeria, but finger millet in Nigeria thrives without being affected by Striga, even though Striga is still a very important problem in West Africa, including in Nigeria and including in areas where finger millet is grown. So just keep that in mind. That makes it a very serious or a very important problem to deal with. But in East Africa, again, finger millet has only been a host for Striga probably in the last 2 decades. In comparison to sorghum and maize, these have been hosts for Striga for a much longer period. We also do know that different finger millet genotypes respond very differently to Striga germination. So germination is one way of having an indication that your genotype is going to be susceptible or not, because depending on the type of strigolactone produced by the host, it will cause Striga to germinate or not. Now, we also do know that wild finger millet accessions are relatively more tolerant. And if you remember from the study that I showed you from Emmanuel Ejet, he was not able to find genotypes that were not, so all of them were susceptible to a certain extent. So it's almost impossible to find one that is completely immune, especially within the cultivated. We also don't find immune ones in the wild, but we find the wild are relatively more tolerant to striga than the cultivated. Now, in this study that we did with Josephine appearing here, we actually did look at different genotypes and different wild relatives. So these are so the ones that are highlighted in red are actually wild accessions, and the rest are cultivated accessions. And as you can see, we were finding, and what we're showing here, sorry, I didn't include, what we're showing here is the number of germination, of the extent of germination days after exposing the seeds of these genotypes to striga. So clearly, it shows that, you know, some of these wild genotypes are likely more resistant than the cultivated. Yeah, so I think these are some of the things that I just spoke about in the previous slide, looking at, you know, this most likely host specificity, but then we haven't really looked at that in more details. So I'll just skip and go to the study that was done by Josephine. So she looked at, she did a transcriptome study among other studies, and looked at compared resistant versus susceptible genotypes at different time points. And one of the things that was obvious was, you know, just the consistency of some of these classes of genes. You know, the LRR receptor-like proteins were, you know, highly expressed across all of the genotypes. All of them, you know, they were induced upon exposure to the pathogen. But if you look at the resistance here, so you see the resistance. So the LESC10 is a resistant genotype, and OHALI1, they do have these other classes. So they have the disease-resistant protein, LRR receptor-like proteins. They also have, yeah, these NBS-LRR. But as you can see, at 6 days after infection, we don't find any fold change in this particular genotype at all for those classes. But the other thing that is also interesting, if you look even at within 24 hours, these genotypes, these classes of genes are really not expressed, or they're not induced in GBK 0296496A. So that gave a really interesting, I mean, they're also not induced here, but there are specific classes that made it really interesting for us to look at. Okay, so why is it we have all these other ones induced across the different time points, but in this particular, you know, at 6 days, we have uniqueness that we are only detecting in the resistant ones, but not susceptible. And so that ended up creating other research hypotheses that we are looking at the moment, to be able to see how some of these genes are mapping also to the QTLs that we identified, and how we can use them for developing genotypes that are resistant to striga. Now, yeah, this is just to look at the same genes and how they were expressed. So just a summary of what you saw there, but graphically expressed. And as you can see, you end up at 6 days after inoculation you see a lot less that are differentially expressed in the susceptible one in comparison to the resistant genotypes. Yeah, and so in the next maybe 10 minutes, I'm going to give another example. So that was on a cereal. I wanted also to give another example on a crop that you may not know or you may know, but a non-cereal. And this is the African eggplant. I know that the brinjal eggplant is very common here. I don't know how many of you would have seen the African eggplant, which is also very common in East Africa. Well, it's common in a lot of, in a few countries in West Africa, and in East Africa, it's now mostly common in Uganda. It's very nutritious. It's used mostly the same way that you use brinjal eggplant, and it is also highly nutritious. Yeah, I mean, the name was derived from its shape. So if you can see, it looks like an egg. Well, similar to the other eggplant, but I think this is the one that actually does look like egg. I still question the brinjal eggplant if it does really look like an eggplant. But remember, they are related. They're well related, and I do suspect that the brinjal eggplant was domesticated from these traditional ones. Now, as I mentioned, the African eggplant is really nutritious, but one of the important things is that it has been used as a major source of disease resistance to other Solanaceae crops. It's also used as a rootstock for a lot of tomato plants because it has very high resistance to diseases. So that makes it really an important crop. And there's very little mention of it. I don't know to what extent it's used here in India to improve or even as a source of resistant genes to the brinjal eggplant. Now, when we got involved in this, and this is part of work that I did before I joined ICRISAT, and some of it I've done, I continue to do because I'm just really passionate about this crop. As you can see, so this is how it clusters with the brinjal eggplant. But it has been lacking genomic resources. And so what we did at the very beginning was to generate some genomic resources. Now, luckily for this, it is not a tetraploid, it's a diploid. So it's relatively easy to generate genomic resources. What we started with at the time was just to generate some transcriptome information. And, we really thank Qtelomics at the time, almost 10 years ago now. They were just launching, and they were very, they were very kind to offer us, free sequencing, the transcriptome sequencing of this genotype. And that went a long way. We ended up then partnering with the BGI at the time again, and we were able to generate a reference genome for this beautiful crop. And that has since been published, but we were able to estimate the genome size to about 1.2 GB. We did genome annotation as well using the transcriptome data that we had generated earlier. And a lot more refinement needs to be done on this. But yes, we were able to also do a good genome annotation on it. And so we also looked at the different gene families. We were able to cluster it and use the gene families to be able to see how long ago it may have evolved from the other no, well, how long ago these different genomes have separated. So for example, if you look, there's still very close relationship between Ethiopicum and Melongena in comparison to others like with potato or tomato. And we also ended up doing a resequencing of about 60 accessions of the same species, and this allowed us to be able to do a lot more characterization in terms of relatedness within the species, and also, you know, the species has about 4 different types. So there's sham, gillo, as the main types that are being used for eating, at least in Uganda. But also there's another wild relative called ngwevi that is also it's being used a lot. It's not fully domesticated, but it crosses, and you get fertile hybrids when you cross it with either sham or gillo. So this was this was really interesting, because now we do have and actually now we do have a platinum scale reference genome for it, and we are able to call SNPs, do association studies, and also just to be able to do trait discovery on it. But also just showing that to show that even though you may not be using the genomic resources mainly for improving that niche crop, it goes a long way, especially in African eggplant. There's like a hunt for resistance genes to be used or to be transferred into other Solanaceae crops. Now, having a reference genome makes it possible to precisely, target the types and the how to either transfer them or clone them, or knock them out to study them further, or things like that, which I think is really nice. So in summary, I'm just saying, the genomics provide really exciting opportunities for niche crops. But I think there needs to be a careful balance between the investment and the practical use. I think sometimes we get lost in just generating genomic resources and overwhelming the entire databases with genomic resources, and we end up not using them. And I think there needs to be some balance between what exactly we want to use with those genomic resources that we are generating. And when it comes to niche crops, if what we are claiming is that we are using them for sustainable agriculture, then let's not put all our investments in generating genomics. Let's put a little bit there, and also put a lot more on the practical use of the unique traits that they have, So I'll stop here and just thank all the donors. I do know that I may not have put all the partners here that have contributed to all the work that I've presented, but I'm immensely grateful that we've been supported by so many different partners, that we've been able to do the work that we've done there. So I'll stop there, and thank you so much for listening. I think we have some time for questions. Hello, anybody there?
Sure.
Hello, ma'am. They will share the questions in the chat box. Do check it out there.
Okay. I don't have any at the moment, but I'll wait and see. But again, if you have a specific question, you can just unmute. Okay, I have a question there from
Yes,
Tamara.
ma'am. A few questions has been shared with us, like on the WhatsApp.
Okay.
This is one of them.
Okay, so what inspired my focus on developing genomic resources for dry land and underutilized crops? I think most of it is my childhood. I grew up on a farm, and my parents grew. They had all sorts of things. We definitely had finger millet, but I think if I can talk about the specific interest, no, we always had maize. And I know there's so much that is going on maize, but I never really found it tasty to the extent that I found African eggplant or finger millet. So I was just like, these are really tasty and very resilient. I mean, we always just threw some seeds of finger millet there, and the plant thrived. And as I'm also indicating, when it comes to striga is one of the most problematic weeds in East Africa. And as I grew up, finger millet thrived despite having striga growing on it, in comparison to maize or sorghum that always got devastated. So it is my childhood really that motivated me, and also just seeing my parents struggling with striga, managing striga, was one of the things that led me to think, this is something that I can actually work on. But I'm also just driven by, this is an area that not so many people are, and these crops look really important. So why not look into them and use the only skill I have, which is on genomics, to change, to make a difference. Second question is, how do you see niche crop genomics shaping the future of global food security and climate resilience? So I did mention this a little bit. And, we are currently working with very delicate ecosystems. And the ecosystems have been degraded either because we are growing the same crop over and over and over again, to the extent that when a disease when there is an epidemic of just one disease, the crop gets completely wiped out, and that also will mean that there's food insecurity, right? And so I see the niche crops coming into the picture, diversifying that agri-food system, bringing in resistance. But also, I mean, there's something that we do, and I know we do it a lot here, maybe because of subsidy, but also a lot of developed countries, we've just gotten into this space where we're just adding more and more and more nutrients to the soil. But in the end, we are actually polluting the environment. So we are increasing the production of greenhouse gases. We are also increasing the level of underground water contamination, which, by the way, is one of the most important sources of environmental pollutions known today. Probably in Europe now, they're coming up with regulations that you shouldn't have a certain amount of nitrates on your farms, because they know that this really contributes a lot to underground water contamination. Yet there are niche crops that you can grow, and you do not need to add over and over again, the nutrients that you add. In fact, in some cases, they are more efficient in taking up the little nutrient that is there, that you just need to provide a little bit of fertilizer, and they can thrive for seasons. And so I do see that these niche crops really need to be brought back and integrated into the ecosystem, the agri-food systems, to enhance the environmental health, but also human health. We now know that when the environment is not healthy, we are also not healthy. That's where the discussion about One Health has come. I don't know if I still have time, because I see it's already past 6, but I have 2 more questions. I'll try to really summarize them. So what methodology can we use for comparing phenotype with genomics? Now, and then what are the current trends in crop climate resilient research? So in terms of comparing phenotype with genotypes, do you mean comparing or integrating? Yes, I mean, the most basic is the genome-wide association studies that I've indicated, where you're just using basic models, linear models, or mixed general linear models, or mixed linear models. But we know now that AI and machine learning provides us with way more tools that we can use to associate or integrate not just genotype with phenotype, but we can even associate environmental data, market data, agronomy data and be able to design that ideal crop that we want and be able to inform, breeding decisions with all the data sets that we have that is currently available, that we are hardly using in our breeding programs. And then the final question is, what are the current trends in crop climate resilient research? One of the trends is actually looking at the microbiome. Most of our studies have been pretty much on the crop itself. But now we do know, as I was just mentioning, it starts from the soil. It starts from the soil. And that's why, when you're looking to improve your gut health, you're actually going back and, looking to eat curd, which is basically um, the concentration of microbiome, which, by the way, originates from the soil. It depends on where the grass or the source of food for the livestock were grown. We haven't, in crop breeding, we haven't really exhausted the microbiome enough. And recent studies actually show that different genotypes have the ability to recruit the relevant microbiome to help them to thrive. And so I think, in climate resilient research, we do need to look at soil microbiome and even the whole plant microbiome a lot more to be able to really exhaust it in the way that improves environmental health, human health, and One Health at the same time. I think I've run out of time. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was like a very great presentation. It was very knowledgeable and delightful lecture. Uh, and it was truly an honor to have you with us today. And we sincerely appreciate the time and the effort you devoted to sharing your valuable expertise and experience with us. Your insightful words not only enlightened and inspired everyone present, but also offered meaningful present perspective for us to reflect upon. And your contribution added a great depth and significance to the session, making it very truly impactful.
Thank you. Thank you too. Thank you for inviting me. All the
Yes,
best with the remaining lecture.
thank you so much, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye. Now, let's extend a warm welcome to our esteemed keynote speaker, Dr. Simarjeet Kaur. We are truly honored to have her with us in our FDP program. Deeply grateful for her gracious presence, her expertise, and insight promise to make this session both inspiring and enriching. As we conclude our program, it is indeed a privilege to have her here. Dr. Simarjeet Kaur. She is highly academic leader with more than 22 years of experience in teaching, research, and administration. She is currently serving as the Dean of the University School of Skill Enhancement and the University School of Life Sciences, along with the Dean of the Student Welfare, Director of IQAC, Director of International Affairs. Dr. Kaur is a gold medalist from the Punjab University, Chandigarh, and hold a PhD in mycology and in the UGC NET qualified. She has guided 10 plus PhD students and 10 MPhil scholars, mentors over 100 postgraduate students, and published more than 100 research papers, books, and book chapters. With over 500 keynote lectures and 80 presentations at national and international conferences, she continues to inspire many through her academic excellence. Dr. Kaur also serves as an associate editor of the Journal of Environment and Ecology USA and the chief editor of the Bahara International Journal of Multidisciplinary Research. She holds an industrial patent on the cultural medium for edible fungi and 15 design patents from the Indian Patent Office. Honored with over 100 awards, she has received the Charles Darwin Award Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Puraskar and Bharat Shiksha Gaurav Puraskar, Eminent Educationist Award, and the Influential Women Award by the Just Agriculture India. So let's welcome her for her valuable and the pleasing words. Dr. Simarjeet. Dr. Simarjeet, ma'am.
Yes, a very good evening.
Very good evening, ma'am.
Actually, you muted me, so that's why I was not able to connect.
Okay, sorry for that.
I was trying to communicate, like, please unmute me.
Sorry, I was like busy in like telling about you.
Thank you so very much for such a lovely introduction. It is an honor always to be on a platform at Just Agriculture. So this is Professor Dr. Simarjit Shergill, and she has already introduced me. So today I will be just sharing a basic, uh, everybody I guess is an expert now in this field. So basic information about the integration of the technology in the agriculture. Specifically, I would be more focused about the agripreneurship where youth they could contribute a lot, right? So I guess it's going to be a very basic and interesting session for each one of us. So we all know that what is the traditional farming, and nowadays again we are observing this traditional farming in many parts of India. So India is an agriculture dependent country, but at the same time where we see a lot of advancement in the technology, still the farmers they have been using those the traditional equipments and the old practices, right? So this is what where we need to look upon if we really looking forward and to be in competition with the other the developed nation. So still we are using the traditional seeds traditional method. No doubt the traditional method they are generating the employability. That is one of the biggest merits of the traditional farming. But when it comes to the productivity, the production is always low because we have been using the natural the fertilizers, not in terms of crop rotation or some vermicompost or some organic manures. So we are leaving the soil as such on their on their own, like to for their natural regeneration. So that is where the issue arises, and the crop productivity is actually very low. But still in many states of India, the farmers they have been adopting this old traditional method without the use of any kind of machinery. Still they have been using the the animals, and the manually doing the all the kind of agriculture work. So now it is a time to get adapted to this modern farming, high yielding variety the farmers they are using. But again, the farmers who are very much aware of using these kind of the seed variety, they are aware about like what type of seed they need to use for boosting the agriculture productivity. And they are also into this the crop rotation and other kind of, they are into this multi cropping also. So in modern farming, marriage they are on one side, but on the other side, if I say the excessive use of fertilizers and the pesticide actually is very harmful for the environment, and it is actually reducing the soil fertility because the soil is becoming deficit in the micronutrients. So for time being, we feel like it is boosting the productivity. So it is good for India, a country like India where we are on the we say the population explosion is there, so now we are number one country in population. So the farmers they are using the machines, modern technology, even ICT is being used nowadays. And excessive irrigation and excessive or the over exploitation of the the groundwater resources, it is also depleting the water table level. So in general, if I say the modern farming, if we are not using it wisely, it carries the many negative impact on the environment, and also not good for the soil health. When we collectively say soil health, that is very much essential to maintain, right? If we actually need a good productivity in that case. So this is where I say the role agripreneurship comes into force, means specifically where we try to align the modern technology with the traditional farming, right? So the youth, they play a very significant role in aligning this modern technology with the traditional knowledge of their ancestors. So this is very, very much important. And here the youth, who are the the backbone of the nation, they are the ones who could contribute a lot in aligning this technology, because specifically in the rural area where the agriculture is quite dominating, in those areas the technology that is not being used effectively due to many challenges that we will be discussing later on. So anyhow, we know nowadays, we see the mobile agriculture is there, everyone is using the mobiles and the smartphones, and they have been developed for the ease in work for the farmers. But the question arises, why the farmers, they are not in the position to use those apps. Maybe they are not aware of it, they don't have the robust internet connectivity, or they don't have access to the technology, or they are not in the position to buy the smartphone or the smart technology. So anyways, nowadays, this the mobile agriculture, we say, that is there in fashion. But these are number of the apps I have mentioned over here. ID apps that is being used for the weeds and the insect identification. Then there is a calc app, likewise econ app is there for checking the grain prices, market evaluation, news, and other finances related with the the agriculture. Then there is a scout app, guide app, gag app is there. So basically n number of apps are now in the market. On the phones, you can simply download it, and you can align these apps with the technology, and you can get the information about your soil health, soil characteristics, like the weather forecasting, and many more. You can find the kind of information you can get from by using these apps. But now again, whether the farmers, they are in position, or they are the quite educated to use these kind of apps. So I always find one solution when we see always say, like, there should be a kind of the alignment of this traditional knowledge with the modern agriculture. So agripreneurship, that is a very good the option for the farmers, specifically for the youth, because they don't like farming, honestly speaking. Nowadays, they don't want to get into this profession, they are very much into getting the white collar job. So agripreneurship is a kind of thing which brings a kind of the job opportunity for them, and in terms of reputation, you can say, the standard, and also in terms of productivity and finances also. So we say nowadays the youth, they don't want to be called like a farmer, they feel like we are agripreneur, we are into this agri business or into this agripreneurship. So agripreneurship, we know it's a combination of the agriculture and the entrepreneurship, where you see the farmers, they apply their business principle on the farming, okay, and they create some the innovative and the profitable ventures out of their normal farming. So many youth, they are into agripreneurship now, rather than traditional farming, rather than growing wheat, maize, or any other kind of crops. Now we see a number of examples, where the farmers, they are growing the dragon fruits also, like they are managing the microclimate as per the need of that specific kind of the crops. So that kind of awareness is there, but that is restricted to few of the areas. So alignment of technology in the agripreneurship, that brings a lot of the options and the solutions for the problems that we have been facing right now in the farming system. But again, I always say, being an entrepreneur is a mindset, right? You have to see things and opportunities at all the time. So we see things as a threat. We feel like, okay, this is a kind of challenge, and anyhow I'm not going to overcome it. So we tell the youth to develop that kind of mindset, like they want to set up some kind of business in the agriculture. They can grow kinnu, they can be into a, the honey business, they can be into a seed to seed business, they can develop some good variety of seeds and they can sell, they can export to the other countries as well. This is a very sad state, in India. We are the, the agriculture dominating country, but still we import, the wheat from the other countries, because our we are not able to feed the population right now we are having. And land is not the issue. The issue is with the kind of techniques that we are using right now. And most importantly, our youth, they are not willing to get into this, the agribusiness or into the farming. Many farmers every year, around 2000 to 3000 in India, they are dropping out of this, the farming system, which means they are not happy in this, the in this farming culture. They want some kind of, the fixed income, just like the people they are getting while they are doing certain other kind of jobs, or they are employed. They don't feel like employed. So it is a big issue. And here we bring one solution where we are motivating the, the young generation. We are telling them to get themselves involved into the, engage themselves into the agriculture, because they are the building block of the nation. And we know the stronger the youth of the nation, the stronger would be the nation. The nation who are not able to pay attention on the youth, they are nowhere. They don't exist in the history of the, the mankind. So definitely we need to motivate our youth to get into this agri business. Now we know that the livelihood of many of the Indian population, that is dependent entirely on the agriculture. So youth involvement in the agriculture, that becomes very, very, the significant, because they are the source of the ideas, you can say. They are the source of the energy. And likewise, if I say, they have the ability and tendency to learn and to grasp the new ideas for the technologies faster, because they are into this system now, right? So it becomes very essential to change the mindset of our youth. Even we can say, the women, they are now into this, the agriculture, and they are doing very good in the agriculture. And at every stage of the agriculture, when we talk about the labor or the manpower, from production to consumption to processing, storage, marketing, at each and every stage, the labor is required. So basically, this agri farming or agri business, it also gives the employability to many of the, the youth, when it comes to the unemployment, specifically with reference to the India. So rural youth participating, even they could participate in the marketing initiatives also, once they are into this, the agri business. So there is a complete business setup where each and every stage, the, the youth, they could be a very significant part of this agripreneurship. Now, employability, I have already discussed this topic, because definitely this is the significant alternative solution to the youth unemployment and ability to overcome the socio-economic issues that nowadays the youth is facing, and they're getting into the anxiety and into the depression. So, but still, I would say it is very disturbing to note that our youth, they are losing interest. They're losing confidence in the agriculture. Maybe the policies are not up to the mark, or the government is not able to provide that kind of, the support to the farmers which they are looking for. Hence, they are not willingly involved into this, the agriculture operations. So many youth, they are changing their ways looking at the agriculture, and they are dropping out of into this farming system, and they are getting themselves to find the alternate, the type of the jobs for which they are not fit. In fact, they can do a lot in the agriculture, but again, there is a need to spread the awareness or to change their mindset. So we know that uh, youth nowadays, they carries ideas, they carry, they're more receptive to the innovation when it comes to the, the traditional agriculture. it's very hard. I have personally interacted with many of the farmers, and it's very hard to convince them to adopt new kind of the techniques and the technology. Finances could be one of the major issue because they are not in the position to afford those kind of the equipments. So still, if I say in the other countries, there is an excellent, development or technological development in the field of the agriculture, science and technology. Only a few they have adopted it because they don't want to invest into, because they feel like there is not going to be any kind of return, which is fair enough. So anyhow, certain limitation and challenges are there which every farmer that has been facing in many states of the India. So it's a big challenge. So in the coming year, one of the biggest challenge for the Indian agriculture would be the retaining its youth in the agriculture. It is very, very important. Like if we could retain our youth into the agriculture, so farming, unless it becomes intellectually, stimulating and economically rewarding, the new generation, they are not going to take it as the main option. They will be looking for the alternate option. So it is very important. We need to, the government should come up with certain kind of policies where they should develop a kind of, the framework or the policies. The farmers, they should come forward, specifically the youth, they should come forward and they should get themselves involved into this agripreneurship. So reviving India's agriculture, that is still very important agenda. And we have been seen for the last 4 or 5 years, the farmers protest regarding the government policies in one or other states. We see it, likewise we see it also in the other countries, not only in India. Anyhow, it is a lucrative business. If we say on the point of the agri business, many people, they are doing excellent in the agri business, but again, finance or the subsidies or the loans, they are one of the major issue when it comes to the general public. So what are the key challenges that the youth have been facing nowadays? Because first, I always say one is the interest, because they are not interested. That is one of the reason. But why they are not interested? Why they are opting out of this kind of, farming, which is a source of livelihood for each and every one of us. So modern ICT, we say mostly the mobile phones and the internet, they are appealing to the rural youth, and they have high potential for facilitating access to information to enhance the productivity on the farm. But at the same time, I say the mobile technology, that is widely diffused in the rural area, because mostly the youth from the rural area, they are the ones who are into this farming or into the agriculture, or they are the ones who could be more interested getting into this agri business, right? But into mobile technology, that is very, very much diffused in the rural area. And high prices of the computers or the internet or the other, the appliances, like if I say the drone technology is being used, then we say drip irrigation method, the sprinkler method in the modern, the farming or in the modern agriculture. And also there is not a proper, there is also lack of the electricity. So many challenges are there for the implementation of the ICT in the agriculture in the rural area. So until unless we look into this aspect and we see this, this could be resolved, or with the implementation of certain kind of, the advancement in the technology, and at the same time, as I said, the government should bring some kind of the incentives so that the farmers in the rural area, they would be in the position to afford the ICT in the agriculture. Although we have advancement in the technology, but I say, what is the use of the technology if the farmers, the people who are working on the ground level, they don't have access and they're not in the position to use it, right? Then the access to the information and the education. Again, in if we see the our curriculum, with the no doubt with the implementation of the National Education Policy 2020, a lot of changes has been made in the curriculum. But still, if we see at the primary or the secondary, at the school level, the curriculum needs to be revised, and the education, it should be added as a part of the curriculum, education in agriculture, right? So this part is very, very much missing, because the youth residing in the rural area, they don't get that kind of the mindset in the beginning of their education, like they want to get into this agriculture business or agri business, because they have never been taught the kind of subjects or the modern technology, how they could grow beyond this, the traditional farming. So it should be a part of this, their curriculum, and they should have the access to the information and to the education. And most importantly, if I say, the infrastructure of the schools or in the rural area, that is often bad, and classroom materials is also, the facilities are not for the, developing the right kind of the mindset in the youth. So yes, schools, they are far away from the, the villages, and sometimes the students or the youth, they don't prefer to go at far places to seek the education. I'm not talking about only in terms of like the states which are in, even in the rural area, we are having a very, the school of eminence or good schools, but there are many states and many places far away from the civilization, where the main occupation of the people is farming, and still they don't have access to the information, to the ICT, the technology, and to the education. So they are the ones who are really into this business, and they don't have that kind of, the access, where they could explore the other options, and they could use that kind of technology to enhance their, the agriculture productivity. And this is one of the important aspect, is the vocational training and the extension services. Yes, this is very, very effective tool for teaching agriculture skills and providing the youth with the capacity building trainings, right? But they do not always transmit the necessary skills, and we know there is always a mismatch. Like there is a lack of funding. Okay, lack of funding facilities there. So vocational training, that is not available in all the, the villages or in the rural area, right? And then the another mismatch, that is between the kind of training we provide to the youth and what is the market demand. So there is a huge gap. Basically, we should train the youth in the way, what is the, as per the need of the industry. Now we are teaching them a different kind of curriculum. Practical knowledge is missing. Industries, they expect much more, they are more into hands-on training or into the practical knowledge. So that gap should be filled first, right? Only then we would be able to develop a kind of youth who not only to get into the this agri business, but also to get into some kind of, the agri related industries, where they could, they could explore their other potential also. So yes, this is very, very important aspects for the youth, and for the alignment, where we can teach them how to use the modern technology, how to use the smartphone, not only for WhatsApp chatting and for other kind of, for Instagram. They can use it for, as that smartphone, for their, the agri business, for the marketing, and how they can, enhance their outreach to the public. So that could be taught only when vocational training or the extension services are being, arranged or developed as per the industrial needs. Then yes, higher education, again, the youth residing in the rural area, they don't have access to the higher education, because the universities or the institutions, they are far away from the rural villages, so their knowledge is very limited. And that is the reason when we say, okay, yes, they should be taught at least agriculture in the curriculum at the school level also, so that that would develop the interest in them. And at the higher education, they are the ones who will get the opportunity to get into the research and into the development. So yes, so it is equally important to connect the educational institutions with the labor market opportunities or with the industries, and to ensure that skills of the agriculture professionals respond to the labor market and needs, so that young graduates, they are employable. and we can enhance the employability only once they are having the vocational training, skill trainings, they are educated, they are having interest in the research and the development. Only then they would be in the position to get absorbed into the industries. So these are few of the challenges that are the youth or have been facing in the agriculture sector, and that's why I guess they are losing interest in agriculture also. They feel like it's a kind of burden to get into this occupation. It is a hard work, and in return they are not getting any kind of fixed income, and there is so much uncertainty. And then we know the natural calamities are there, floods are there, droughts are there. So a number of factors, they are also contributing for losing the interest of the youth in this the agribusiness. Now, here a few of the concrete solution I have mentioned with terms to the entrepreneurship. So it is important for the young entrepreneurs to be adequately self-aware to know what they don't know. So here again, it comes about training themselves and training up to that level where they could be in direct dialogue with the industries, and they would be in the position to generate to certain kind of initiate startups or their own business, rather than they need to be job providers rather than being the job seeker, right? So first is we need to stop this agro brain drain. Many startup schemes have been initiated to encourage the youth into the agriculture. So for long, we know this sector has been neglected. There is no doubt. 80 to 90% of the students studying, they belong to the farming community, but still they prefer to choose two different career. Like they are graduating from the agriculture universities, they are graduating in the agriculture, but they prefer to choose a different kind of career because they have lost interest in it, considering the difficulties their parents have been facing or their ancestors, or so they don't want to get into this farming, right? So this is what we say is the agro brain drain. Like they are trained in the agriculture, they have studied agriculture, but they don't want to channelize their energy into this agri business or into this agri sector. So there are many ways to enhance the job opportunities for the students of the agriculture. And for this, the government, again, that plays a very significant role. They should come up with a scheme so that students, they are given a license to market and supply the fertilizer, then the pesticide. And in doing so, the farmers, they can get correct advice regarding the amount to be used for a particular crop. Nowadays, the issues with the traditional farming is the excessive use of the fertilizers and the pesticides, which is not only, carries a negative impact on the environment, but also on the human health as well. And it is also not anyhow good for the soil health. So the students, they should be given a kind of training to train them in such a way where they should not lead towards this agro brain drain. They should be a leader and they should be a job provider rather than being the job seeker. So the first and most important challenge is to stop this agro brain drain. So both the government and the corporate sector industries, they should join have hands for this for stopping this agro brain drain. And yes, hand holding is required to strengthen the farm livelihood. As I said, they are not attracted to this profession because this is not a white collar job. And issue is still remains the same. I think every one of us has witnessed that farmer protest where they keep asking about their minimum, support price, the MSP, or the guarantee from the government. So why they are doing so? Because they are insecure about their future. They don't want to try other crops. We are growing only wheat, maize, potato, few crops we are growing, the farmers, they are growing, because only those crops which are having the MSP, minimum support price. The other crops, they don't have the MSP, so the farmers, they are not taking chance to grow those crops. So ultimately it is anyhow declining the soil fertility. And due to this, we are not getting into this, that, the multi-crop. We are into monocropping right now, and the farmers, they are not taking any kind of risk. So if government assured the MSP for the other crops as well, definitely this will encourage the youth to take up farming without bothering about the market risk. So basically they are bothered about the market risk. The youth who are willing to take this, the farming as a profession, they are having other issues, like they need certainty into it, like they will be having some kind of, I can say, is a fixed income. So there should be innovation in the agriculture. So again, this is one of the solution. So we should avoid the monocropping, but the youth, they also to be taught about the profitable farming techniques during the vocational training and others. And they should not only be taught about the integrity farming, but also about the latest technique in, like, they can get into this mushroom farming, dairy farming, sericulture, goat rearing, rabbit farming, floriculture, fisheries. So many youth, they are getting into these kind of profession, and they are doing very good in the, the agri business. But again, the support system that is required on behalf of the government also. So they should also be given the subsidies or the loans to start their own food processing units. We have noticed in many of the, the farms where they are rearing goats, or they are into this profession of sericulture, they are growing kinnu or other crops, the processing units, they are far away from that, the place. So if the government gives them the subsidy or loans to start their own processing unit, and definitely it will help the youth to establish their own processing units. And in this way we can decrease the transportation cost, as well as the, can provide the jobs to the youth also. So on one hand, where we are fighting with this issue to reduce the unemployability, there again the government that plays a very important role. The farmers or the youth, they can take up farming as their, the first choice, or as a professional in terms of agri business. But yes, the sport that is very much required at the back end. So teach them to become the farm entrepreneurs, where we say, okay, rather than being the job provider, it's time they, rather than being the job seeker, it's time they should be the job providers. So that's why we are motivating our agriculturists, our farmers, to get into this agri business. Otherwise, currently, if I say India's agriculture sector, it resembles a patient battling for life in ICU, because they are not getting what they are asking or what they deserve for the sustainability or the self sustainability. So there we need to, or the government need to focus and to come up with certain ideas, where at one, the stage, they both can be in agreement with each other, the farmers and the government. So we must guide our youth to be a job provider rather than the job seeker, by getting into this agri business. Now, government, they should also invest into the research and development when it comes to the production of the high yield seed variety. There we know that India is a kind of country where in one year, in one, the hydrological cycle, in one year we face, there are the drought like situation in some of the states, then flood like situation. So yes, if the government would invest more into this, the research and the development, and there could be a production of the drought resistant variety or salinity resistant variety, high yield variety, then definitely India youth will gain the confidence to take up farming as a profession. So somehow that confidence is lacking, because they are not being given all the kind of, the facilities. So yes, banks, they should also provide the subsidies or the loans without any collateral security. So these are few of the, the issues the youth or the, the farmers, they have been facing. Then there should be a focus on the quality instead of the quantity. So we want food to be cheap as possible, that we all would agree, right? We don't want to eat costly food. But why should those same input or benefits apply only to the cash crops? who also happen to be the relatively richer growers, right? So this is one of the main issue. Like the benefits are being given or subsidy only for the cash crop, like when we say the coffee, tea, even in non-edible, I would say the jute is there, cotton is there. So only for the cash crops which are being exported for commercial benefit, like the not the kind of the crops which are the farmers they are growing for their own consumption. So only for those crops the subsidy or the benefits are given, which are being exported to some other countries. So perhaps the policies need to be differentiated between the food staples and the cash crops also. So yes, it should be given equal importance, and subsidy should be given and each and every kind of the crops. Then yes, this is one of the best solution. We always say organic, that is very important. It is a healthy, and we know, firstly, why we should spend so much on buying fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, and we are paying the tax on these the fertilizers and the pesticide. And second, we know that organic production, it relies more on the labor. Once we are into this organic farming, so it will generate the employability also. And third, we know it promotes the healthy lifestyle. So nowadays it is in fashion also, organic foods are in fashion also. So we encourage the youth to get into this the kind of organic farming, where they can have their own units of you know producing the organic manures or the worming compost, and they then using the same into their field for the organic produce, and they can export the same also. But yes, for this they need to train themselves first and then get into this business. Then education in the rural area, yes, it should be um, taught at the primary and the secondary school level also. This is also one of the best solution, where since the beginning the youth or the the kids, they will get that kind of mindset, like agriculture, that is very important segment of their life, and they need to develop or to get themselves involved into the agriculture or into the agri business. So if we will teach our kids at the primary or the secondary school level, then definitely they will develop a kind of interest in the agriculture, and they would like to explore the other the techniques and the technologies being used all over the world for the same, and definitely it will generate their interest into the agriculture. Then financial assistance, we have already spoken a lot about providing the financial assistance to the youth, specifically living in the rural area. And this is possible only with the support of the government, right? Industries, they could also come forward. And now the industries, they are collaborating with the farmers, and they are like we are having a many examples now. The farmers, they are having their own brands. Like if I say the big basket, they are having tie-ups with the farmers, and they are selling their own brands, bb, in the under the name of bb rice, bb this, bb that item, all the food items you see. Likewise, many other brands are there in the market. So that kind of collaboration between the industry and the farmers, that is also required. And for this, again, I would say the farmers, they also should come forward, and they should also develop some innovative ideas. And here the youth, that plays a very significant role, and they are the ones who could align this the technology with the traditional knowledge of their parents or their ancestors. Then self-help group, this is very good initiative, especially to support the women self-help groups, and NABARD has initiated. And but if I say in the rural youth, again, there is a lack of these self-help groups, where they are the ones who are coming together and generating their own fund, and supporting their own startups. So yes, it should be there. The self-help group should be there, not only in the rural area. It should be even, I say, at the institution level also. Self-help group should be there, where the youth, they should inculcate this thing in their mind, like they are the ones who can start any kind of business. So if they will come up together in a groups, they would be able to support each other financially, emotionally, mentally, and they could be a backbone for each other in kind of, if any kind of the emergency. So definitely these self-help groups, they are very very important. Then in nutshell, if I say the conclusion, youth of the rural area, they are not significantly engaged in agriculture based on these livelihood activities that we know. One thing is very, very clear, right? So, number of incentives they are required if we really want to create their interest into agriculture, into agribusiness, and we need to change their mindset. Like this agribusiness, it could be a very, very good career for them, right? And also at the same time, the government should design the adequate policies and the legislations where they could, encourage the youth to show their interest and the participation into the agriculture related activities. So, well, just to share the information, I will be sharing few of the success stories of the agripreneurs, where they started from, very basic level. They are a source of motivation for the, I guess, to our listeners also. There is a seed to seed, the campaign. Um, this is by Sardar Jaswinder Singh Sandhu. He started from a district Taran Taran, right? Right now into this seed business. And he is the one who got training, and after getting the training, he started with this selling seeds, developing a different variety of the seeds. And he started from a very small village, but he was having that talent and potential, and he was having that mindset, I want to do something, and I want to attain that success, and he got it right. So he participated into, he trained himself by enrolling himself into the vocational training programs. And then he took training from the agri business center scheme and agri clinics. And then he got himself into this seed production business, and within 3 years he would clock more than 200% success. So yes, it was a very, I would say, a very humble beginning for him. But at the end, you see, now he's a successful agripreneur. Now there is one, we say the apple doctor, very famous from the Kashmir Valley, and Mr. Ishfaq Bukhari, who took life as a challenge to face all the odds in order to restore the economic liberty for himself and for his fellow colleagues. Obviously he generated employability for others also, right? So he started this adventure in Srinagar. And during the initial phase of his project, he moved from door to door. So door to door campaigning was there to motivate the farmers to join with him in this project. And then right now he mobilized almost 500 farmers and has tried to bring them under one association, Apple Planet Agri Clinics. So now you see, now he's taking the consultancy support from the agri scientists and officers for the benefit of the society. He's also himself providing the consultancy to the others. So this is how he initiated this business, and now he's doing very well in it. Then Ocean of Honey, Uday Bir Singh Rana, he belongs to district, Karnal district, Haryana. And again, this is a success story where he took the training from the agribusiness clinics. And he invested 20 lakh initially. And within the first year, I guess, he earned 80 lakh, And it is really, good to see now every day he's processing the honey and around 150 kg per day. So now he has that brand named as Ocean of Honey. So you see, these are few of the success stories just for I'm sharing with my the participants. Like you can begin, you can have a very humble beginning, and you can start from the ground level. You can start from the scratch. It is just one idea related with the agriculture. in your mind, and you need to develop that idea into the business, and how you need to get into this agribusiness. Agribusiness is not only about growing crops like the people they are doing in they are having orchard, they are into this apple business, they are into this honey business and sericulture, rear goating. So a number of professions are there where the youth they can get themselves involved into this agribusiness. So, well, at the end, I would like to say the entrepreneurship is neither a science nor an art. It is just a practice, right? हम बोलते हैं ना कि इसमें कोई साइंस नहीं है, कोई बहुत बड़ा लॉजिक नहीं है that you need to, the invest a lot into it. It is all about how it is about your mindset, and it is about a practice. And practice is like once you are into the field. बोलते हैं ना जब ओखली में सिर दिया तो मूसलों का क्या डर, तो सेम ही है वहां पे कि आप यू जस्ट चूज वन फील्ड एंड यू गिव your 100% into it, and definitely you will get the success. So the agenda of this faculty development program was to align the traditional knowledge with the modern technology. So my idea of sharing this knowledge was the youth, they are having a lot of potential, right? They are the ones who are the backbone of the nation, in short, if I say. So they are full of energy. It is just they need to channelize their energy in the right direction. And to technology, they are well aware of the techniques being used, they are educated. But yes, it is the sport, financial sport they are looking for. So the government should come up with the kind of policies which should support the youth. It will reduce the burden of unemployability, as well as it will channelize the energy of the youth in the right direction, and it will promote the agri production also, right? So many youth, they should come forward and they should take agri business as their a profession. They should not seek the white collar job. In the agri business, they can sit in their offices and they can run the business of millions. Many are doing it, right? So yes, it is time for our youth to change their mindset and to get into this agri business where they can align the knowledge of their the ancestors with the modern technology. So this is, I guess, enough from my side. Thank you so very much for being the patient listener. So if you are having any questions, you can drop in the chat box, or you can ask me directly also. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a very knowledgeable and delightful lecture on integrating of technology in agriculture and entrepreneurship. Also, I guess there is one question I have already dropped, as I got this question on the WhatsApp group. So you can check it out.
Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You are audible.
Okay. So I guess every time you guys are putting me on a mute mode. So I can see the question very well over here. How do you see technology reshaping the future of agriculture and creating the new opportunities for the entrepreneurship? This is a question by, I think, Tamanna Sharma. Tamanna, I guess I have already answered it during my presentation, because nowadays while we are integrating the technology with the the traditional agriculture, it is bringing a lot of ventures and the avenues, especially for the youth, once they are into this agri business or into this entrepreneurship. And I have also shared the success story of many of the agripreneurs who are successfully running their business. So this is like when the youth, they are lacking interest into this the agriculture, it is all about the financial constraints is there. So when we speak about the technology, that means it involves finance also, right? So many farmers residing specifically in the rural area where the farming is their main the occupation, they are not in the position to afford the kind of technologies being now adopted. Not the farmers, they are not in the position to buy the drone. Many farmers, they are not into the position to go for that drip irrigation or sprinkler kind of technology. So finance is one of the main issue even in terms of the technology. Anyhow, with the support of the government or the policies or the subsidies or the loans, the farmers or the agripreneurs who are into this business and who are in the position to afford the technology, it could do a miracle in shaping the the future of the agriculture, not only in terms of agriculture productivity. Definitely that would be enhanced. So technology, I would say, it's just like a doctor. When you use the technology, specifically this ICT based technology, when you use, so this kind of technology, it could detect the soil health, the soil characteristics. It could forecast your weather also, and accordingly how much amount of the irrigation is required for those specific kind of the crops. So with the technology, you can have each and every kind of information in hand. In hand means on your smartphones, right? And accordingly you can decide what type of crops you can grow in that field, and you can make your the own decision regarding the productivity, and you can get into that kind of the biofertilizers and the biopesticide. So technology can do a miracle if we are in the position to use it. The only issue is with reference to India is this: we are having the technology, but only few they have access to that the technology, right? So this is very, very important. Each and every farmer should have access to the technology so that they can collaborate that technology with the this modern agriculture. I have cited few examples earlier where the farmers, they are still using they are the animals in their field. So they are not having even tractors or the other kind of machinery. They are into that manual handling of all the agricultural things or in the farming. So the most important thing is to have the accessibility to the technology. Once the farmers, they are having the accessibility to technology, definitely it could do a miracle in the history of the agriculture. So next I can say in what ways the collaboration between the research institution, startups and the private sector accelerate the agri-tech innovation. Yes, definitely. I have already mentioned the collaboration should be there between the research institutions as well as the industry sector. There are the youth residing in the rural area who don't have access to the higher education. That is one of the limitation. But the ones who are having access to this kind of the higher education, they should be involved into the research and the innovation. And for that, the research institutions and the industry, they should come forward and they should collaborate with each other, where the students studying in the institutions, they could get into the industries and to have that the real word experience, the hands-on training. When we speak about the vocational training or the skill training or the hands-on training, that is possible only in the industries. And definitely it would also, the fill up the gap that exists between the the industrial sector and the research institutions or the educational institutions, because there is a mismatch. The students or the institutions, they are not able to find out the requirement of the industries. So institutions, they are training the students in their own way, but the expectations of the industries, that is entirely different. So definitely they should come at a one platform where they should collaborate with each other to offer the opportunities for the students or the for youth to have a hands-on training or skill training, and that collaboration can benefit the the agriculture sector in a very good way. So that's it, I guess. Any more questions, if I expect from the audience, I'm free to answer.
I guess, ma'am, that's all for today's questions. I guess uh, there are no more questions there, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
so thank you so very much. It was
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was,
it is always a pleasure to share my views on this
yeah, yeah.
platform, and I highly appreciate the time of the participants also. I can say very renowned, the people, the doctorate, they have joined this session. So thank you so very much for the patient listening, and I hope you are going to take something away today at home, and I have given you something to think about when it comes to the future of our youth. So thank you so very much. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We sincerely thank you for sharing your valuable time, answers, expertise, and insights with us. Your words were truly inspiring and added a great value and depth to the session, making it both meaningful and impactful. I really thank you for that.
Thank you so very much. God bless you.
Now, I would like to say for the vote of thanks, I would like to connect with the Dr. DPS Parwal, as he's the CEO of Just Agriculture. And for vote of thanks, I would like to call upon him.
Thank you, Sakshi. With a vote of thanks, with heartfelt gratitude, I would like to thanks firstly Dr. Damaris, who has joined from the ICAR at Hyderabad, and Dr. Simajit ma'am for today's enlightened lecture, valuable insights and inspiring words. So your presence and contributions truly added great depth and meaning to our session. A warm thanks to everyone for being such a wonderful audience and for enthusiastic participation throughout the program. And I guess more than 500 participants have registered for this 7 days international FDP program. And I hope you all have gained meaningful knowledge and a wonderful week-long journey for this inspirational FDP program. And with this, we have to close this program, and very soon we are organizing our winter school, and many other few programs are lined up. So my heartfelt thanks to all the speakers who joined us in this 7 days. More than 10 experts from different countries have joined, and thanks to everyone, and truly enriching, memorable, and successful, and making this event more successful. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Simajit ma'am.